All right, so continuing with the refined paint layer. Remember, it's a lower opacity brush. And the trick is to not just let everything wash out to default color, but instead to have some fun with the artistic inspiration, not just matching the reality, like putting in his eyebrows here. Let's throw in a little fluorescent green. There's a lot of blue, but I'm mixing them together, and then I can wash that over with a little bit of the skin tone and then put some of the shadows back. Now here's where digital painting is different than traditional, because we're really setting this up to be a lot like traditional painting, right? We're just making every stroke ourselves. We're picking colors from a palette. We're just picking them basically from ourselves. Kind of drawing all of this linear structure on the face. I like doing portraits of men a little bit more than of women, just because you can really make a lot of all the textures in the face without feeling like you're insulting them. And our Western standards of beauty for women don't allow them to have a lot of surface texture on their face and still be considered flattered, in their image. So when I would do editorial cartoons of celebrities or politicians, I would always get multiple references, and I'd try not to make them look like I was making fun of them. But in digital painting, you really need all that information to make the paint surface interesting. This isn't just a line art cartoon. Okay, now this is where digital painting is pretty different than traditional. At any point, I can just change things, right? So I'm noticing this is my portrait, and I'm noticing that I have the eye angled down this way, and I see in the reference of his eyes here that it's angled up this way. But remember, I'm looking at this reference, where his eye is a little bit angled down, but maybe not angled down quite so much. So, what can I do? I can, because it's digital painting, take this refined paint layer, duplicate it, Command J, transform it, and warp it. And I'm just going to focus it on the eye. And I'm just going to move just the refined paint to be a slightly different angle in the head, like that. It's kind of in between that position and this position. Right? And now I'm better set to do the other eye. Now, because this is the refined paint, the base color stays where it is. The refined paint is what augments the base color with all the transitions I want. And I'm starting with the eye not to be super detailed, but because that's the focal point. And I need that to work. And I can kind of establish a finish right away just with that portion. Throw some color in there, some skin tone back into it. But because it's at 60%, right, I have a lot of control. The more I can paint, the more the texture will be interesting. Get that reflected red light up in the eye socket. This is where multiple references really helps. What about the tear duct? Kind of frame the white of the eye with the tear duct, just in a couple strokes. All right, now the nose. This is called modeling, right? So I find like a dark color. I kind of find the edge, but this is at 60%. I'm going to model the nose. Andy Warhol was Jewish. His name at birth was Warhola. And kind of like Michael Jackson, once he gained a lot of prominence, Andy Warhol was very critical of his nose and the ethnicity, what he thought were Polish features. And he sought cosmetic surgery and things to change them. And, all these things that humans deal with, trying to find acceptance and to feel better about themselves. So there's a lot of interesting textures in his nose. He's got like pock marks from childhood acne. All of that is something that can be, even just for a representational painter, sources of visual interest. But I want the big picture first. I want to kind of frame in the eyeball, get it spaced right. Remember, there's one eye width between the eyes. I could resort to kind of cheap digital tricks. What are the cheap digital tricks? They would be copying this eye, duplicating it, and then just moving that over, right, as a start for the other eye. There's no kind of wrong way. But I think I can play with it in a different way, maybe by using overlay, and then merge them together. And now I can see this refined paint layer is more on track than what I had before, right? So even though I'm really just working between two layers, a refined paint layer and a base paint layer, that's going to give me my painting. I can make modifications at any time, kind of duplicate, reject, rework, and that's an advantage digital painting has over traditional painting. As soon as you see something that should be different, you can make that change. If you're interested in becoming a better painter, I suggest materials like watercolor or inks or even just add markers. Materials that stain the paper so you can't change it, right? Because painting is about reacting. The problem with digital painting and only learning painting through this interface is you don't really learn to adapt with the material. Bless you. And that's why everyone kind of goes towards photorealism. It's kind of just an instinct. Because you can objectively tell when you're matching something or when you're not. But that takes away a lot of the fun of painting. We're not just trying to be photographers. And because I have a background in watercolor, I do get kind of fussy. And everyone has a different character to their visual painting strokes. Mine tend to be pretty short and choppy, fairly thick in their width. Because one of my favorite painters is Jean Singer Sargent, who was able to describe form in very few strokes. Right, now that I have this gray background, I can better judge the light value for the wrinkles and his cheeks. And the blessing and the curse of photoreference is that's what you have to work with, right? So there's a lot to work with in this Polaroid that he took of himself. But I also have to make it square away with the reference of him in the crown. So I'm not just trying to copy a photograph, I'm trying to make my own composition here. Now, did I accidentally close it? Once I have the eyes, I know I'm kind of grounded. My composition is going to make sense. There's something for the audience to look at and then react to, right? The focal point of the eyes. So now I need to change my nose to reflect this angle, right? Because he's kind of leaning forward more. So photo reference makes a big difference. Even though the structure of the face will be the same, it's the angle of the face that I don't want to commit to too early. Now let's get some wild colors in here. All right, so at this point, I might look at some of my artistic reference, the William de Kooning stuff. And maybe I'll pull that up. And maybe I'll even play with preview and just adjust the colors and exaggerate it a little bit. Right? Sharpen it. What's this texture like? Then I can even select it all, copy it all, and then paste it in as a reference that I can steal from as I'm working on this face. But I'm going to lock it. So this is my abstract reference. And you can move reference to be closer to you. Now what's the difference between having reference on the outside like this, just to look at, and reference inside, within where you're painting? If it's inside Photoshop, then I can steal colors from it, even if it's locked. So a lot of these kind of toxic yellows are not my typical kind of color palette. But that's actually a beautiful, beautiful aspect that I'm ignoring of the spectrum, right? Helps bring out those purples. It's kind of jaundice color. These oranges, which I have a little bit of, but I can make more of. Remember, there's blood running in the skin, so you can always, for human skin tone, no matter the skin color, you can always use orange and red as a base color so that those warms come through. And then where there's hollows in the skin, like the eye cavity, right? You can use greens and blues to kind of hint at that. Push those back. Okay, he has this very defiant look. I want to get that soft smile in there. So it's really easy to stay stuck on the eyes, but I want to be able to treat the whole thing. Remember, I got all of this to deal with. So refined paint helps you do that in a pretty controlled way. And observe his lips. And now I can paint with white and black because I'm only doing it at 60%. So what it's doing is just really lightening the colors that are there already. And now that I have that gray background, I know I need to get a little bit darker in my midtones.